Hi everyone, my name is Madeline, and I will be talking about the Rise of China debate today. I will be taking the stance that Mersheimer was not correct in arguing that the rise of China is a security threat for the United States. So I want to start by just summing up Mersheimer's argument that we saw in his debate video really quickly. Ultimately, he argues that the rise of China is a security threat to the United States, and this is based upon neo-realist ideas of power politics. So the best case for the U.S. is to be the most powerful state, according to Mersheimer. So to him, increased Chinese economic power will translate into increased military power that they will use to dominate Asia, and the U.S. will not or should not allow that to happen and would need to respond, most likely resulting in some sort of conflict with China. So neo-realist and Mersheimer in particular argue that a bipolar order is more stable than a multipolar order, internationally speaking. So they don't want China to gain power because it will result in increased instability in the international system. So this is based upon their argument looking at the Cold War with the bipolar order with the US and the Soviet Union being the two major world powers in the international system. But this is a slightly faulty assumption because they're assuming that the Cold War was a completely peaceful time, and this just is not true. In reality, many wars were fought during the Cold War in Asia, in Latin America, etc. So the assumption that a bipolar order is any more stable than a multipolar order when looking at the Cold War doesn't necessarily reflect reality historically or even currently. So many of the reasons that Mersheimer believes a bipolar order is more stable have to do with military capacity. So during the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union represented the bipolar international system, and both had nuclear weapons. That's the first reason. The second is that they had a comparable military strength. And the third is that there's less of a chance of miscalculation, militarily speaking, when there's only two major powers involved. The more powers you add in, the more room for error. So China fulfills these first two reasons, even if it was a multipolar order. And from Mersheimer's argument, as they increase power economically, they will increase their military power and will be able to match the United States. So they would have comparable military strengths. The second condition's already met. China already has nuclear weapons. And the third, I argue that is not really relevant when discussing nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons in general remove a lot of the miscalculation and error that comes with conventional warfare and simplify deterrent strategies. You simply have to have enough nuclear weapons to form a counterstrike to deter someone from striking you with nuclear weapons. So we, I argue, are less likely to go to war with China than a non-nuclear state, regardless of how many great powers there are in the world. In fact, to further encourage stability, China is actually the only state involved in the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty that has a negative security assurance, which means that they have a policy of no first use, that they would only use nuclear weapons in response and defense. So in many ways, we are a more unpredictable actor than China is. And the last argument I want to briefly discuss is a liberal argument. Taking a liberal perspective rather than a neo-realist perspective, like Mersheimer would argue that at this point, the world is so globalized and we are so interconnected with China economically. They hold a lot of our bonds. A lot of our economy is tightly linked with China's economy, that going to war would be mutually destructive. Us destroying China's economy would hurt our economy in return, which would deter conflict. So thank you all for listening. Bye.